Team News. This is breaking news.
And we begin with breaking news tonight. The driver accused of hitting and killing a 17-year-old in Madison earlier this month was in court today.
51-year-old Kathleen Borgwardt's bond was set at $5,000.
Borgwardt is accused of second-degree reckless homicide for allegedly hitting and killing the teen on South Park Street on February 5th.
If convicted, Borgwardt faces a maximum sentence of 25 years in prison and a $100,000 fine. If released, she would not be allowed to have any contact with family members of the victim and is not allowed to drive without a license. Madison police say investigators believe speed was a main factor in the crash. According to the criminal complaint, a Madison police officer used footage of the crash to estimate Borgwardt's approximate speed. Police believe she was going about 62 miles per hour in a 25-mile-per-hour zone.
The public does need to be protected from this defendant in light of her behavior on the road. Obviously, the seriousness of this offense cannot be overstated, as a 17-year-old lost his life due to the reckless conduct of the defendant.
Borgwardt is expected to appear again in court on March 30th for a status conference.